A governor is, in most cases, a public official with the power to govern the executive branch of a non-sovereign or sub-national level of government, ranking under the head of state. In federations, governor may be the title of the politician who governs a constituent state and may be either appointed or elected. The power of the individual governor can vary dramatically between political systems, with some governors having only nominal, largely ceremonial power, while others have complete power over the entire government. The title governor is less common in parliamentary systems such as in some European nations and many of their former colonies, which use titles such as President of the Regional Council in France, President of the Regional Junta in Italy and Minister President in Germany, where in some states there are governorates as sub-state administrative regions. Other countries using different titles for sub-national units include Mexico, United States and Switzerland. Historically, the title can also apply to executive officials acting as representatives of a chartered company which has been granted exercise of sovereignty in a colonial area, such as the British East India Company or the Dutch East India Company. These companies operate as a major state within a state with its own armed forces. There can also be non-political governors, high-ranking officials in private or similar governance such as commercial and non-profit management, styled governor, who simply govern an institution, such as a corporation or a bank. For example, in the United Kingdom and other Commonwealth countries there are prison governors, school governors and bank governors. The adjective pertaining to a governor is gubernatorial, from the Latin root gubernare. The historical female form is governess, though female officials are referred to by the gender-neutral form governor of the noun to avoid confusion with other meanings of the term. Pre-Roman empires. Though the legal and administrative framework of provinces, each administrated by a governor, was created by the Romans, the term governor has been a convenient term for historians to use in describing similar systems in antiquity. Pre- and Hellenistic satraps Media and Achaemenid Persia introduced the satrapy, probably inspired by the Assyrian, Babylonian examples. Alexander the Great and equally Hellenistic Diadoche kingdoms, mainly Seleucids and Lagids. In later Persia, again under Iranian dynasties, Parthia, the Sassanid dynasty dispensed with the office after Shapur I, replacing them with petty vassal rulers, known as shahdas. In ancient Rome, from the creation of the earliest Roman subject provinces, a governor was appointed each year to administer each of them. The core function of a Roman governor was as a magistrate or judge, and the management of taxation and public spending in their area. Under the Republic and the early Empire, however, a governor also commanded military forces in his province. Republican governors were all men who had served in senior magistracies in Rome in the previous year, and carried related titles as governor. The first emperor, Octavianus Augustus, divided the provinces into two categories. The traditionally prestigious governorships remained as before, while in a range of others he retained the formal governorships himself, delegating the actual task of administration to appointees. The legatus sometimes would appoint a prefect, usually a man of equestrian rank, to act as his deputy in a sub-region of the larger province. The infamous character of Pontius Pilate in the Christian Gospels was a governor of this sort. A special case was Egypt, a rich private domain and vital granary, where the emperor almost inherited the theocratic status of a pharaoh. The emperor was represented there by a governor sui generis styled praefectus Augustilis, a title evoking the religious cult of the emperor. Emperors Diocletian and Constantine in the 3rd and 4th centuries AD carried out a root and branch reorganization of the administration with two main features. Provinces were divided up and became much more numerous. They were then grouped into dioceses, and the dioceses in turn into 4 praetorian prefectures. Military responsibilities were removed from governors and given to new officials called Comes Rei Militaris or Dux, later also Magister Militum. The prestige governorships of Africa and Asia remained with the title proconsul, and the special right to refer matters directly to the emperor. The praefectus Augustilis in Alexandria and the Comes Orientis in Antioch also retained special titles. Otherwise, the governors of provinces had various titles, some known as consulares, some as corrector, some as praeses. Apart from Egypt and the East, each diocese was directed by a governor known as a vicarius. The prefectures were directed by praefecta praetorio. Byzantium. This system survived with few significant changes until the collapse of the empire in the west, and in the east the breakdown of order with the Persian and Arab invasions of the 7th century. At that stage a new kind of governor emerged, the strategos, a role leading the themes which replaced provinces at this point, and involving a return to the amalgamation of civil and military office which had been the practice under the Republic and the early empire. Legacy. While the Roman administration in the West was largely destroyed in the barbarian invasions, its model was remembered, and would again be very influential through two particular vehicles: Roman law and the Christian Church. Holy Roman, Habsburg empires and successor states. Reichskommissar. Turkish rule. In the Ottoman Empire, all pashas administered a province of the Great Sultan's vast empire, with specific titles and a British Empire and Commonwealth of Nations. In the British Empire, a governor was originally an official appointed by the British monarch to oversee one of his colonies and was the head of the colonial administration. A governor's power could diminish as the colony gained more responsible government vested in such institutions as an executive council to help with the colony's administration, and in a further stage of self-government, legislative councils or assemblies, in which the governor often had a role. Today, crown colonies of the United Kingdom continue to be administered by a governor, who holds varying degrees of power. Because of the different constitutional histories of the former colonies of the United Kingdom, the term governor now refers to officials with differing amounts of power. Administrators, commissioners and high commissioners exercise similar powers to governors. Frequently the name of government house is given to governors' residences. The term can also be used in a more generic sense, especially for compound titles which include it. Governor-General and Lieutenant Governor. Viceregal governors. United Kingdom overseas territories. In the United Kingdom's remaining overseas territories, the governor is normally a direct appointee of the British government and plays an active role in governing and lawmaking. The governor's chief responsibility is for the defence and external affairs of the colony. In some minor overseas territories, instead of a governor, there is an administrator or commissioner, or the job is ex officio done by a high commissioner. Australia. In Australia, each state has the governor as its formal representative of the Queen as head of the state government. It is not a political office but a ceremonial office. Each state governor is appointed by the Queen of Australia on the advice of the Premier, who is the political chief executive of the state government. State governors have emergency reserve powers, but these are rarely used. The territories of Australia other than the Act have administrators instead of governors, who are appointed formally by the Governor-General. The Governor-General is the representative of and appointed by the Queen of Australia at a federal level on the advice of the Prime Minister of Australia, as with the Governors-General of Australia and other Commonwealth realms. State governors usually exercise their power only on the advice of a government minister. Canada. In Canada, there are governors at the federal and provincial levels of government who, within their jurisdictions, act as representatives of the Queen of Canada, who is Canada's head of state. The federal governor is the Governor-General of Canada, and the governor of each province is the Lieutenant Governor. The Governor-General is appointed by the Queen on the advice of the Prime Minister of Canada, whereas the Lieutenant Governors are appointed by the Governor-General on the advice of the Prime Minister. The role of the Governor-General and of the Lieutenant Governors in Canada is largely ceremonial, although they do retain the authority to exercise reserve powers in exceptional circumstances. Each of the three territories is headed by a commissioner appointed by the Prime Minister. Unlike provincial lieutenant governors, they are not representatives of the Queen, but rather are representatives of the federal government. New Zealand. The Governor-General of New Zealand is always governor of the Ross Dependency, an Antarctic sector which is claimed by the Realm of New Zealand. Within the United Kingdom itself, there was a position of Governor of Northern Ireland from 1922 until the suspension of the devolved Parliament of Northern Ireland in 1973. Within England from the 16th century until 1995 there was a Governor of the Isle of Wight, part of England. Since the reign of Henry VIII, the monarch has borne the title of Supreme Governor of the Church of England. Elsewhere in the Commonwealth India, each state has a ceremonial governor appointed by the President of India. These governors are different from the governors who controlled the British-controlled portions of the Indian Empire prior to 1947. Governor is the head of the state. Generally, a governor is appointed for each state, but after the 7th Constitutional Amendment, 1956, a governor can be appointed for more than one state. Kenya. Since the 2010 Kenyan constitution, leaders of the 47 counties use the title of governor. They are elected every 5 years by registered voters of the county. Governors are the chief executive officers of the counties and are akin to the national government's president. They oversee an appointed committee of executives who manage a range of portfolios such as agriculture, county health services, cultural activities, public entertainment and public amenities, county transport, animal control and welfare, trade development and regulations, county planning and development, pre-primary education, village polytechnics, home craft centers and child care facilities, implementation of specific national government policies on natural resources and environmental conservation, county public works and services, fire station services and disaster management, control of drugs and pornography, ensuring and coordinating the participation of communities and locations in governance at the local level and assisting communities and locations to develop the administrative capacity for the effective exercise of the functions and powers and participation in governance at the local level. Malaysia. In Malaysia, each of 4 non-monarchical states has a ceremonial governor styled Yang di-Pertua Negeri, appointed to renewable 4-year terms by the Yang di-Pertua Agong, the federal king of Malaysia, on the advice of the Prime Minister after consulting the state governments. These states each has a separate head of government called the Ketua Menteri or Chief Minister. The 4 Yang di-Pertua Negeri are members of the Conference of Rulers, however they cannot participate in the election of the Yang di-Pertua Agong. Discussions related to the privileges of the Malay rulers and matters concerning the observance of Islam. Nigeria. In Nigeria, the leaders of the regions, which in 1967 were divided into states, have been known as governors since 1954. Following a military coup in November 1993, President Sani Abacha suspended all the governors and appointed administrators. When democracy was restored in 1999, the office of governor was revived and new governors were elected. The President of Nigeria can suspend state governors in a state of emergency and replace them with administrators. They are elected by popular vote. Pakistan. In Pakistan, each of the 4 provinces has a governor who is appointed by the president. The governor is the representative of the president in the province and is the ceremonial head of the province, whereas the chief minister is the head of the provincial government. The governor exercises powers similar to the president's in the province respectively. Papua New Guinea. In Papua New Guinea, the leaders of the provinces have been known as governors since August 1995. Previously, they had been known as premiers. Sri Lanka. The provincial councils of the 9 provinces of Sri Lanka are headed by a governor, as representatives of the president. Prior to 1948, when Ceylon as Sri Lanka was known back then, the governor of Ceylon was head of the British colony. Other colonial empires. Those representatives could be from chartered companies that ruled the colonies. In some of these colonies, there are still officials called governors. See Danish colonial empire, Dutch empire, Empire of Japan, French colonial empire, German colonial empire, Italian empire, Portuguese empire, Spanish empire, Swedish overseas colonies, Russia and former Soviet Union. In the Russian Empire, governorate and governorate general were the main units of territorial and administrative subdivision since the reforms of Peter the Great. These were governed by a governor and governor-general respectively. A special case was the Chinese Eastern Railroad Zone, which was governed as a concession granted by Imperial China to the Russian Chinese Eastern Railroad Society, which built 1,481 kilometers of tracks and established on 16 May 1898 the new capital city, Harbin, in August 1898. The defense for Chinese Eastern Railroad across northeast China was assumed by Russia. On 1 July 1903, the Chinese Eastern Railroad was opened and given authority of its own CER administration, vested in the directors of the Chinese Eastern Railroad, with the additional quality of governors of the Chinese Eastern Railroad Zone. The post continued to function despite various political changes until after World War II. Some of the administrative subdivisions of Russia are headed by governors, while others are headed by presidents or heads of administration. From 1991 to 2005 they were elected by popular vote. In 2005 to 2012 they have been appointed by the federal president and confirmed by the province's legislature. After the debate, conducted by State Duma in April 2012, the direct elections of governors were expected to be restored.